answer based on what you have thought out. You are giving them an opportunity to come up with different ways of arriving at a situation. And that is critical thinking. And that is really, really provided for. That's why we are saying that in the CBC, we don't want a one-off examination where people score 100%. Can we be able to give our children 60% out of that they have been doing on a day-to-day basis, and which reveals their critical thinking around the issues that confront them? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. And let me bring in Evans now. Evans, I'm hoping we're all good now. You are a special education teacher, and Prof has, elucidated on what is the current curriculum is trying to achieve, particularly in giving both soft and hard skills. And a very critical conversation and aspect of learning in today's world is that it must be inclusive of students and learners living with disability. Speak to us about that particular area. Do you feel this has been sufficiently addressed in our curriculum, in our institutions, in our society? Are we doing enough, one, to equip in form of the skills we are giving the learners living with disability, and also in terms of accommodation in our spaces? Evans.
Thank you.
No, we are struggling. I'm sorry about that. We are still struggling a bit.
I'm thinking, okay, you getting now?
Just try again. We tried. Just try to say something.
For me, I'm getting you loud and clear.
Oh, now we can hear you. Yes.
Thank you so much. Kindly allow me to say on the earlier question, then I answer what you're asking. Okay. The first thing you ask at the beginning of who takes responsibility on values.
Yeah.
Every parent must take responsibility. Let the children know when they are very young what they stand for and what the family accepts and what the family does not accept. When children get into school, we have what we call as combats. They vary. We go for policy, not necessarily for values. So in terms of values, may every parent know what are the limits, what do they teach the children, what is acceptable and not acceptable. Now back to question on disabilities, which is my interest. I want to say at policy level, they've done extremely well. I personally work with KICD at some time, and every time that they're developing curricula, they do not leave persons with disabilities out. All through the process, I can confirm to you that those who are with disabilities have always been engaged. I'm most aware, even at the Ministry of Education, there are a lot of policies. There was a policies on learners and trainees with disabilities. The problem is not at policy level. So maybe the major challenge is how do we implement what is already on paper? And it requires a lot of creativity, especially on the part of the teachers on the ground. We normally say that let us find ways in which our learners can access the curriculum. If they cannot learn the way we teach, then let us learn to teach the way they learn. There is no one way of teaching. What works best is what you go for. Try this, and if it does not work, try another. So yes, at policy level, a lot has been done. What we need more is at implementation level, which also brings another access. Do we have the resources related to that? If we can address those two, I think we are good to go.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Evans. And what came out clearly is that the matter of inclusivity has been addressed at policy level, and that we need to do more in terms of implementation. And let me now bring in George, and to speak to us, George, about the reading culture. And first, what made you get onto this path of being a champion of reading? Maybe Evans, you can mute your mic for now. Thanks. George, if you can talk to us about what led you to get on this path of championing for reading culture, and since you did, or rather, what can you say is the status of reading culture among the young people of Kenya, and why is it important? Why did you find it important to advocate for it?
Okay, thank you. First, let me say thank you to Prof for the work they're doing. I feel like going back to school. I think I was manhandled, right? And Prof is handling them nicely. So great work. So it's actually, it just happened out of Corona. And Corona happened, schools closed, we were locked in the house with children. So if you remember when Corona first came, we couldn't go outside. We were very scared of even your own nanny, you would not allow to leave the house. It was, we were very afraid in that March, April, I think. And so I ended up with my kids, and what was happening was that since they cannot go outside, they were on the device. There is nothing else to do. They go to the device. So you tell them go outside for only one meter away from the house, then they come back in. They could only play with each other so much. And it became a big worry for me. Like the screen time, you can imagine, was ridiculous. It's from when they wake up in the morning, and then we got the e-learning, online lessons. So they do online lessons. They finish online lessons, they go to the TV. They finish the TV, they go back to a computer, then they go to a bed. That is not healthy on any child, whatever it is that they're consuming. So that's what, and for myself and a few other parents, we came back, tried to exchange some books. My son had a BizWiz competition or something. And so we came up with the idea, and I mean, for me, what really, when we started asking what else could he do, what else could my daughter do, I remembered when I was a young man, when I was in primary school, the one thing that really, I grew up in Nyeri, and one of the things that really made me appreciate the world and how big my world could be and how far I could go was the books I read. I mean, we all remember we read Jeffrey Archer, we read Sidney Sheldon, we read Sherlock Holmes, and I mean, all those things. When you read them, you felt like you were in London because you read Jeffrey Archer saying London. And because I was a storyteller, I used to read that thing and I go give a fake story, how I was walking down the Park Avenue in New York, because I've read it in some book. And this is the very same things Prof is talking about. Reading brings out articulation, awareness, expansion, confidence. It's one of really, really the biggest things. So once it got on and I found, wow, there are quite a few parents who wanted this, and we started championing it and trying it. And then when we found the biggest problem we had was that books in Kenya are expensive. This is sad, but books are expensive. I mean, by books, I mean recreational books.
Right.
Recreational books are very, very expensive. They're very heavily taxed. So you'll find a recreational book for a child generally costs about 1,000 bob. That's the truth. Now, most homes for sure cannot afford that.
Yeah.
Two, so it just puts it out of. So the whole idea was, how could we rotate a book? And then the challenge of a book, for example, if you buy a book yourself, if you buy Michelle Obama's book, you will reread it. A child does not reread. A child consumes a book and throws it away. You've read Hardy Boys, you'll never read it again. You know, because it's a lot of entertainment. It's to stimulate their imagination and creativity. So a lot of parents have a lot of dead books. These books are very expensive. The child reads them in 2 days, it's wasted. The whole thing was not working. And that's where we got in and created a commercial model. And right now, kids are able to read a book for about 100 to 200 bob a week. So that's what we're pushing. Feedback, what we have found. This is the most interesting thing. It's the mothers who are driving the reading. This is sad. I'm a man. No, my men out there, please. The mothers.
What do you mean that is sad?
80%. 80%. 80%
so
of our library subscribers are the mothers. The girls are championing, but the ratio is good. It's 56 to 41, 56 to 44. So the girls are leading. But what is shocking is how we understand the price of a book. So, like I told you, we have positioned basically for your child to constantly read a lot of books the whole month. You'll pay about 1,000 bob for the whole month, including delivery. It can come down to 800, 600. People would rather buy 2 beers. This is the truth. That's just the truth. If you're not even buying 2, it's the truth. We are struggling getting numbers. People would rather buy their children fast food than a book. And you know, this is where I really get lost. Those are the ones who can afford. What we have found is that the ones who can't afford have a huge hunger for these books. And we're working on a lot of, and I mean, I'll be talking to Prof. There are a lot of things we're trying to do, getting partners to the ones who can afford and try to do book sharing. Our dream is if I can go to Kakumini in Matu and get a child to read a book for 10 bob, I've done my goal. But I think the real challenge we have is the very tools that were used on us to make us, we are not passing down to our children. We are very quick to complain that the curriculum is wrong. The teachers are wrong. We are being kept in work until 5, which is why you're not seeing our parents. But if you ask me and I am paid a bonus in my salary, I would rather buy a PlayStation than buy a book for my child. And yet it's the very same book that raised me. And it confuses me because it's the very things that work. Now I'll give you an example, like the kids who, okay, you're sorry. And I've gone on. Sorry, I got excited.
Your voice went somewhere.
Okay, no, I was just saying, so solutions. I think I tell people, get your child to read 30 minutes a day. 30 minutes a day.
Okay. Let's try to get George back. George, I can see you talking, but I can't get your voice for some reason. And
really?
I see you are not muted.
Maybe
the fathers have heard you saying so much truth about you not about them not encouraging children to read and have invaded your microphone. Anyway, let's sort that out. George, just try to check what's up. Huh?
Can you hear me?
And yeah, I can't hear you.
Now you can't hear me?
We can hear. I can hear him.
I can hear you.
Let me try bring Dr. Susan. And then I'll come back to you to see if I can hear you now. Oh, I'm the only one who can't hear you to the peer.
Yes, everybody's hearing.
Mm.
Okay, just carry on as I sort my end.
Yeah,
I think
so
I'm the one with the problem.
What I was saying, I mean, these are statistics and it's very easy to point out what's wrong. I think if we can all encourage your child to read, pick something. I remember we grew up even reading our father's newspaper. I don't see any child reading a newspaper right now. So no one knows. Ask anyone who is the Minister of Education. You'll be in shock. These children of yours who can assemble a computer do not know who the Minister of Education is. They're very unaware of what goes on outside their bubbles. So and we are the ones feeding this. How do we judge child development? How do you judge that your child has grown? So most of us will be quick to judge by the grades. But also, if you look at what parents do, parenting to us has become, I take my children to an expensive school, I fed them and I housed them. So encourage each other, and it starts with you, Today, give your child a book to read and tell them, tell me how they would read it different. They do not have to come to the library. Pick any book and get them early. If you can get them even as early as anything before 16. 16, you're a bit late, but you can get them at around 10. You're going to do a great. Trust me, in 30 years, a child who reads 30 minutes a day, you will not recognize that child. They say the difference between a child who doesn't read and the child who can't read is 0. You get it? Who doesn't read and can't read. Illiterate and doesn't read. You are the same. And you're here bragging that your child knows how to play with computers. So those are my challenge to everyone.
Okay. Thank you, George. I'm sorry, I missed a bit of your input at the end, but the good side is everyone else could hear. So thank.
We've lost you, Sharon.
Nice.
Yes, which is the social media influence. And I want to bring in Dr. Susan here. Social media. We have children as young as God knows how old, now having almost full 360-degree access to social media and what it offers. Talk to us about that, about the opportunities, the risks, and then what kind of controls do we need to put in place where social media is involved and the young people? Dr. Susan.
Wow, thank you so much, Cheryl. With digital learning, we embrace it, and it's a big challenge, and I know Prof knows that, and George. And it's sad when I hear George talking about children who want to read, and I know the vulnerable children. I try to bring resources. I don't know whether you saw Magoha visit a school in Professor Magoha deserves that title. Visit a school in Kiambu, in the slum. He visited that school twice, before the opening and before the exams. And that's where I grew up. And I do go back to tell these kids it's education that has brought me this far. And I challenge everybody, if we could all go back to our roots. And if you didn't grow up in a place that you needed to be empowered to be at a higher level, please create a space like that and go to Kipra, go to wherever you are. You might help a child. And I'm telling you, role models are lacking. So when you're talking about social media, the parents are leading. You will go into a home and everybody is actually on their phone. Parents competing, laughing, with each other. And there is no attention to the children. So when they also get theirs, they feel, hey, I'm also in that space where daddy is and where mom is. Yet I know in the same digital platform, if a child can be taught how to use that font, because the fonts are the ones we have in a big way. Rarely do we have tabs. We don't even know, I don't know, maybe George has interacted with any of the parents, where parents can actually make their children use these fonts or any electronic gadget in a very beneficial way. Because as you hear, even out there, you might find a child in the children's area, they may have that big TV screen, but whatever is fed in that screen is meant to develop them intellectually. Even parents that buy their children tabs, they have put what the child needs to learn in that tab, because children don't know what they find here. Right now, I give a child, even a 3-year-old child, my phone, and they find all those nude photos. That's what they will go scrolling, by the way. And at the end of the day, you will find as they advance in age, like now the high schoolers, Mommy, if I do this, Daddy, if I do this, are you going to buy me a phone? And because most of the parents maybe who buy their children's smartphones have the money, they only give them a few targets and there goes, get a phone. But nobody follows. Most of the parents don't follow what their children do with these phones. And you will find your child gone and gone. And Sharon, I'm not shy to report to you, and Professor, and maybe if there are teachers here, you can correct me if I'm wrong. Within this period of corona pandemic, we have had high cases, rising cases of lesbianism and gayism in schools. And the majority that have reported, probably within my inner circle of counselors, because we do have a platform where we report to one another what has been happening in Kisumu, what has been happening in Mombasa. And it's because these children, they are able to exchange material, pornographic material, from one child to another one. And you will hear, because when they are caught, they actually confess. And they say this one was sent to me by so-and-so. In fact, I thought it was a very good movie. And my friend told me, you wait until your parents are asleep and then you can watch it. And if you look at our children, that's why I say it's not 100% blame on them. Parents, as much as we are saying they are trying their level-based, Professor, I believe even the parent needs self-awareness, parenting skills. If you missed, I'm sure George and I have struggled maybe to be better parents, depending on how you grew up, right? And maybe, Prof, maybe that's why you're so passionate about filling in the gaps. Probably you would have become a prof long time ago, not to wait until you're 50, 40, because our children actually need to change. Look at even our education system. There is somewhere we all have a mental block. So for me, the more we expose our children to social media, the more we are killing the creativity and imagination competencies.
Doc, what's your solution? Are you saying we should completely, try to create a barrier so that the young people don't access social media at all? Are you saying we keep watching? What's the solution?
The solution is we can't do away with it, because we can't run away from digital space and use of digital resources right now. We just have to change the way we are navigating the space at this moment. That if I am a parent and I have bought my child a phone, then I need to be with them as they use it. Otherwise, if I have left them on their own, you will look for them one day, you'll not find. Parents come there and they are screaming, I don't know whose child is this. It's your child. It's nobody else's child. So it's important that we know as parents, I need to be there. If I buy a gadget, it's my money I have used. So the child needs to know their rules of engagement. Most parents don't have rules of engagement with their children. It's like we are afraid of our children, but mostly it's because we don't know them. And I have said, if a parent also feels, I don't have that capacity to parent, don't be shy. Don't be shy. Like I used to shout when I was a young mother. And my son one day said, Mom, you're shouting like my teacher. And I was bringing my teaching from the classroom to home. So it's important that we become aware as parents also. Is there something I'm also doing as a parent that is making my child think this is the solution to everything?
Okay, and I want to ask our audience to just share their thoughts on this. Dr. Susan is saying that we need to, be more aware of what the kids are doing with the phones. Is this possible? What kind of challenges are you as a parent, as a guardian facing in terms of regulating, the use of phones and social media for the kids? And also just keep your questions coming. You can share your questions on the Zoom platform or on different social media pages, and so that I can throw them to the panel. And I want to bring in George, because George is very passionate about freedoms. And Susan, you've talked a bit about it. Parents, are we scared of the kids, of creating rules of engagement? And Evans, you talked about this issue. We live in a space where there's a lot of also activism that we see about the rights of children. And so there could be a bit of a gray area where rights is involved, freedoms is involved, and where also parenting and managing the freedoms is involved. What are your thoughts on it, and what do you think we need to critically do regarding that, Evans?
Thank you, Sharon. I want to agree with Dr. Susan on one thing. Do not deny them the phones or the gadgets. That one will not work, because if you deny them, somebody else is going to give them. Instead, actually provide and work together with them in terms of keep on engaging. Professor also talked about it. That is part of the parental engagement. Keep on engaging. What is it that you go for? What do you like? What don't you like? Number two, create a relationship of a conversation. Are your children able to report to you what they are doing? And especially when you are talking about people like sex predators on the internet, have you created an atmosphere where your child is able to tell you, Mom, Dad, this is what I got. Can you look at the conversation I've had? Look at this message someone was sending me, and so forth. If you do not create that atmosphere, then you are in problems. But if you create an atmosphere of a conversation, you are going to navigate through. The other thing, in my opinion, you need to show them the sites that engage and that are exciting and useful to them. Again, Dr. Susan talked about developmental stages. What are these sites? Because the internet is basically an ocean with all opportunities and all challenges. It depends on which direction you get them into. So can you help them to see sites that are exciting but are also useful? Lastly, I am worried of so much out in children's right hands. Who is teaching our children responsibilities? My view, if we had a little bit more of responsibility, we will be playing less. But we put so much rights and nobody is taking up responsibilities. Otherwise, I think it is possible if we work together. If we form a team, we are going to work. But if we allow them be on their own and us on our own, they'll shock us. Allow me also say, I'm really liking the way Dr. Susan is putting things, because one of the problems, I'm also in guidance and counseling, and at times, there's a time I was also in a disciplinary panel. Most parents, when we call them for issues about their children, they say, this is not my child. My friend, you don't know your child. How long do you spend with your child? Do you ever have a conversation? Do you ever follow up? So many parents are normally surprised when you are told your son, your daughter has done this. It is them, as Dr. has said, create an atmosphere of conversation. You will sort a lot of issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Evans. You brought a lot of good thoughts to think about, that there's a pool of resources online, and that as guardians, as parents, we need to be actively involved, particularly on what the children are exposing themselves to, so that personally I've really gotten that as a very helpful thought, and also learning about the developmental stages and what that is relevant for each particular stage. Of course, then that creates a way of engaging with your child and on how they are on social media. And we have a comment here on parenting. I must say, I'm a new parent myself, so I'm learning so much. There's a lot also to be scared about in terms of how much are you not doing and how much are you able to do. So I guess we are all here trying to do the best. And Rose Opio has sent a comment. She says, I'm not sure that the parenting and parental engagement component that we keep talking about here can be handled competently and with much vigor by the education agencies like KICD. She says, I believe that this should be a social service to do enough justice. That there should be, rather, a social service to do enough justice. There are lots of competing demands, and this superficial treatment is not good at all, since this is now a very heavy concern. Parenting is a skill that we all need now, especially not that the environment has changed. I guess now that the environment has changed. That's Dr. Rose Opio. Very heavy, comment there. I feel what she's saying. And Prof, what do you say to that? That, this parental engagement, we can't be dealt with KICD, and I feel what she's saying. What do you respond to that, and what do you think then would be a way to address it? That parenting, she said, is a skill that we all need now. And I guess there's no school for parenting, so how do we do this?
Thank you very much, Sharon, and welcome to the club. parenting. I have seen Dr. Rosa Pio's comments and I've actually responded to it. But for the sake of our larger audience, I think I come from that school of thought, Sharon, that we don't complicate issues. And I like the way the panelists so far have really tried to simplify these issues. Yes. And let me start from that concept of competing interests. It is a choice, and I think Dr. Gitau, whom I've had a chance to listen to live, has said it before. When we choose, when we get into parenting, I know there are a number of people who get into it more or less by accident, but the kind of parent we are dealing with here gets into parenting as a choice. Yeah. And this is one of the things we also need to start telling our children as they grow, that when you reach that point you want to have a child, one point is to be psychologically prepared for it. Under ordinary circumstances, this is a couple we are talking about. Can you think about what kind of time shall we avail for our child? But also, within your circumstances, what is the best that you can do? Usually, and a lot of us have alluded to this, usually just showing interest in what your child is doing. What do they have in that school bag? The sweater that they had when they were going to school, have they come back with it? Or they have come back with 3 sweaters when you gave them one when they are going to school? What do you tell them when you gave them 1 pencil and they came up with more? Or when every time they come back, they are crying that they have been shouted at by a teacher? Showing interest. The other thing you can do is, and Susan and other colleagues, let me share with you. I keep talking about this, particularly when I have a chance to talk through the FM stations, the vernacular stations. But my mother did not go to school, and I would come back from school when schools have closed, and she asked me, "What position were you?" And there is no single day when I did well that she pulled my ear and beat me up. She always told me, "Next time you'll do better." And any time I did that better, she would cook for me something that I would not eat usually. Not that all parents should take that route, but that just show of appreciation. I'll give you another example. How many of us go to school and just create that break time of 10-15 minutes to talk to the teacher? Teacher, how is my child doing? Everyone's alluded to it. Many times, and I taught for a long time, parents come to school when there is something that they think the teacher has done which is wrong, and some of them quarrel with the teacher in front of the child. So why wouldn't you come and say, "Mwalimu, this child of mine cannot spell basic words. He's going to grade 4. But when you write the word pen, when you write the word cup, when you write the word book, they cannot spell it. Maybe we are dealing with a bigger problem here. A child could be dyslexic." That opportunity to create time and talk to the teacher and find what they're doing. So I would go back to what I said earlier. The starting point, Sharon, in including, I don't know the age of your child, but including that 6-month-old child, is to talk to them. Just create that little time when you are going to work. They are just waking up. Pat them on the back and say, "Mama, have a good day." When you come back, and George said it, tokenism. Don't tell them, "I will buy you a phone, Mama, just do well." Many times we have parents visiting school, and on that day of visiting, they have 3 cooking gases, they have a tent, they have all sorts of food. But if you watch closely, the researcher in me, even during that time, the time directly spent with the child, phones away, this gadget here, phones away, tell stories, telling this child that where we come from. You have a grandmother and you have a grandfather. One of your grandmothers is my mother, and the other one is your daddy's mother or your mommy's mother. They are called so and so. That is a complete narrative. Thank you, George, for saying the culture of reading. And then even just next time, put it into reading, into text, and get the child read. So anyway, in short, Rose is right. Complex scale is a choice we have made. I agree with her on one thing. let us not just talk about parenting in terms of school. And Sharon, I think you are the one who flagged it. There was a time everyone was every other child's parent. So can we imbibe that communal approach? If you see a child stealing, if you find a child using words that should not be used with reference to adults or even to fellow children, can you just guide gently without necessarily beating? So I want to summarize it that we are not talking about a complex issue here. We are talking about creating time for your child, showing interest in what they are doing, and guiding them on the values that matter. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Prof. Now, I want all of us to engage in a matter that is very real in our space right now. We've seen young kids, adolescents, as young as 13 years of age, killing each other because of, rejection by someone they were trying to, have a relationship with. We've seen this present itself in various ways, and I believe it touches on just ability to relate, perhaps even mental health. And I want us to try to understand what the issue could be. And George, I want to bring you in here, and just to tell us, have you had thoughts about this? Just looking around and seeing young people doing this manner of things, taking rejection so badly, and just also drawing from your own experience as an adult, what do you think could be the missing link here, and what gives? What do you think?
Thanks. I think this marries the discussion you just had a little earlier on social media and what children are exposed to. So this is we are here talking about the truth. So let me just say it.
Yes.
My kids are pretty young, 11 and 8, and I can tell you the sad truth is that they know what I know.
Yeah.
This is the reality. Your children know what you know. Let that sink in.
Regarding sexuality and all that.
Wanajua kama wewe. When it comes to relationship, they know like you. But I'm not talking about knowing how to handle, but the knowledge of the existence. There's no more birds and bees. We had a situation in my school, in my kids' school, grade 1, grade 2. They're already addressing issues of relationships, pornography, and all that. This is the truth. Because the YouTube, where they study phonetics and all that thing, is the same YouTube. They're not two YouTubes. It's the same YouTube where all these other things are.
Yeah.
The things that make them feel different. The suicide thing is the thing of, I'm different, I'm not accepted. Right now, so one of the things that's most dangerous that we don't realize, in our culture before when we were growing up, the community policed us, not even just policed us. There is no way a 10-year-old girl would have met a 30-year-old man. If you ever saw a 10-year-old man and a 30-year-old girl, the whole community would have gone crazy, right?
It's true.
Right now, a 10-year-old girl is in the same chat room with a 30-year-old man. So all these things, what is happening, and then it's not somebody from their community or their values. So it's somebody in Czechoslovakia, somebody in Iran, somebody in Washington, chatting your child. So your child is exposed to things, and this is where now we go back to what we're talking about time, what Prof has said about taking interest. Children start changing very quickly. If you're not there noticing, you will, these children don't wake up and get rejected and start to commit suicide or whatever other things that are going on. It then starts, it starts very gradually. So the reality is, because society has, when we all went nuclear and went into our homes, a vacuum was created. But children, the way the world works, vacuum, nature abhors a vacuum, we say. So what takes place? The first thing we put in there are what? Cartoons. So every child is on Cocomelon. Ask all parents, they know Baby Shark. You know, Shaku-do-do-do. What is that song? Baby Shark. Baby Shark. Yes. Everyone is in there. Just you put cartoons. Then right now, if your child is crying, what do? So you give them your phone. We all start very early. Mtoto akilia sana unapatia kasimu, anaanza kucheza with the lights. Then next, so it's either TV, a device. With the child, you start to go ages 3, 4, 5. The first thing you do when they come home, when you finish homework, what do you do? TV, computer. That same computer is where all these things are. So you find the child is not psychologically developed to deal with the idea that there's always a next chance, because that is what you're talking about. How do you deal with the idea that there's always a next chance? So we are all not the same. Even us as adults, there are people who take rejection terribly. We see it amongst us. We see the disciplined forces. We've had people shooting lovers. There are people who take rejection. But can you imagine how worse it is in a child? So instead of just, I like to say, don't just declare a problem, give a little solution.
Yeah.
If you don't intimately know your child, someone does. That's what I'm just saying. So if you don't, somebody is filling your gap for you. It could be some guy in Ukraine, it could be whoever, but someone is filling that gap. That day when you think you're building a future, I'm not saying don't build a future.
Yeah.
Prof said, 5 minutes, let's discuss. Ask any child now, who is Luanda Magere? Who is Kinjetekile? Who, just ask, hey guys, come and tell you about Luanda Magere. Who was the ones who were running and thought they were bulletproof? Those little stories that they would never get anywhere else. So if you try that, I think that's, for me, 15 minutes a day should be enough to notice something is wrong.
Okay. Wow, I want to bring in Dr. Susan, but George, wow, that is heavy. It is also a bit scary.
By 6, they know what you know. Just know that. They know. You
and I think really what you brought out, which is really one of the, they usually say out of everything, if you don't, a whole conversation, if you don't pick everything, you are going to pick a thing or 2 or 3. That's another thing that I'm picking, and I'm hoping everyone is picking something. That where, nature just does not sit with vacuum, that where there's a vacuum, something will fill it up. That's a very good point. And I want to bring in Dr. Susan just to speak about that more. In terms of equipping our children, the young people, psychologically with the tools that then will help them, handle these things, acceptance, rejection, the highs and lows in life. I mean, it's a basic human need to feel, to want to be needed, to want to be wanted and appreciated. So all of these things, and I feel a bit of it then is still part of parenthood, as George has said, to spend some time and what is. How do you wrap your head around all these things, Dr. Susan?
Thank you so much, Sharon. Yeah, George, you're a great parent because at least you acknowledge your children know what you know. Don't sit there burying your head in the sand and thinking that they don't know. They will shock you. One of the things I would like to echo from all the panelists, they were really talking about a well-developed child. And I guess that should be our target. This child that is holistic, who is expected to have all these 7 competencies so that they can thrive anywhere in the world. We must think about the first object that housed them, and this is the mother. And even in the African traditional setting, a pregnant woman was handled with care. Today in homes, she can be kicked. You can still sit in a bus and she can be standing. And she can also be very rejecting of this child. Long time ago, you would never hear of rape cases. Today, we are having very many people who have brought up children out of sexual violence. And they need to be helped. That is why I like Dr. Opio, that it should be a social issue. Everybody come on board because we no longer know each other. Actually, when we talk about the Ubuntu spirit in Africa, I wonder where it is. I think even sometimes some Asian community, maybe the Arabs or the Muslims, if I would go by religion, they're doing better than we Africans, as we call ourselves, the communal society. It's important to know as a mother, I am either a safe object or I'm very unsafe. It's also good to know as a mother that if I bring up this child to this world, the first teacher is me. And that is why you find our mothers did very well. Professor, your mother, if she's still alive, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sure you told her, put on this cap, you know, when you got your PhD, and this gown, because they are the ones who know how to really navigate the way of a child, by the way. Because you are with that child in your womb for 9 months, and the child comes out. And if only we could tell people, being a researcher, you don't have to be that high profile, Dr. Gitao, Professor Charles. No, it is you being a very reflective parent, that every stage of the way, such that if I come to teach Erickson's stages, psychosocial stages, even to the women who have not been to school, they understand, they say, yeah, I remember Professor, when he was 13 years old, you could not even tell him not to stop reading. I'm sure even in Kua, you had all those books and others, you are stealing pages to read, right? And your dad's gazette, especially Juhakaru. So the parents, if they can know, I can actually observe my child as they develop. By the way, they will fit in those stages as you watch. Maybe later it's when they'll tell you, Mom, Dad, you don't know how you helped me when you did ABCD to me. So it's important for the mothers, because sometimes the fathers may still want to act traditional even when the environment has changed. And I believe, George, you'll do a lot of that work now, that you know the male parent needs to really come out differently now. It's not like the way our fathers were, where our mothers were always at home and our fathers were the ones who were working. Now everybody could be working. So you have two parents who are professionals or career parents. And so they need to navigate their parenting space so that they give their child the best. When I look at our children, especially in Africa, because I'm in love with my continent, our children are being confused the more today with all this social media, education, and what have you, with all this that are around, you know. I think every house has a television set. If not, they have a computer. If not, outside there in that shop where they go to buy stuff, or in the shopping center, they have a screen. So they are learning a lot. And if you're not careful as a parent, you will lose that firm grip on your child, and you will never find them. And that is why we are getting shocking news in this country that you can kill your own mother, your own father. Our time, how? You even have that attachment. So when I talk about insecure attachment with our children, mothers, fathers, if you're present, be present. As simple as Prof is saying, be present to your child. Some children, like us now, if our parents were not in school, they only used to ask, what number are you? Only that, what position? We actually thought being position 1, you are the best, such that when some of us went to high school and you didn't get that position again, you just slumped into a depression, because your parents were not in that space to tell you, now high school is different. If you have gone to Alliance, you have gone to meet your match there, you know? But for a parent who is not even aware of how academic world works, they will actually see that you have dropped. And if we go, I am liking the way TSC is working together with KICD, and you're also working together with local administration, where the local administration can bring the parent to school. The local administration can report the cases of teenage pregnancy around the community, and where also Teacher Service Commission can actually help the teachers, you know, capacity building for this teacher also, who has come with their baggage and who is supposed to be the only savior as a second parent of this child. But instead of helping this child, the child is destroyed. And even that parent, when they are also brought into the school environment, there is parental guidance. I have schools that I have worked with, and there are things we have seen. Even in that slum school, it was only this period, and we had a rise in the academic performance, you know, and it's because I would go tell the parents, here I am, I'm a product of this place. Imagine my mother died long time ago. I have had to take care of the family. I don't know how you see your daughter. I don't know how you see your son. And you change their thinking even if they have never been to school. I want to talk about human developmental trauma, especially in our environment in Africa. Our children are exposed to so much trauma, And what trauma does to this brain, any child, it is actually to fracture it. So when you're thinking of the three-parted brain, the autopilot or the survival brain that we all have, we even share with the animals, and the limbic one that has the feelings and emotions and empathy and compassion. People are a 13-year-old, 12, is not even feeling anything, just hurling a stone, a rock, anything to another child, or even knifing them. Why? Because a part of their brain that is supposed to fear, to empathize, to be compassionate is already killed, it's already destroyed. Then we are talking of the neofrontal cortex, the frontal lobe or the neocortex brain, where we should have this thinking and imagination. It is destroyed highly by any traumas or any stresses within the child's environment. And then we go saying, oh, we are always buying cups from China, we are always buying cars from China. We destroy our very own children in terms of their developmental capacity cognitively. But it's the way we behave around them. So for me, when Dr. Opio, I hope you will actually join us to do some work in a small way, somebody somewhere. I'm sure, Prof, you have fought a battle, and maybe very soon this battle will come to an end when somebody sees what the sense you are trying to make. For me, I have been a teacher. I didn't start teaching the other day at the university. I started teaching children who had joined high school with 90 marks, 100 marks, and all I did is to help heal their mind, raise a little bit of their self-esteem, and there they were, you know? So when I look at the teacher, I like to say, yes, you may never have the amount of money that probably somebody seated at Safaricom as a CEO, even with a diploma, has a lot of money. But the lives you impact, and that is where now we are saying, when you talk about patriotism, we are talking about citizenship, we are talking about owning our nation. You don't look at what you're getting. You look at the lives you're impacting. Let me tell you, when I see these students, some of them, they actually pay my tickets to US. And those are the students that I had educated in that school of 100 marks, 90 marks. I was teaching business studies. And I was telling them, you can be anything, you know. And I just told them, you can't be anything. You know, that voice that parents also need to be told, tell your child they can be anything, and you'll see how far they can go. So the parental power, very key.
I want to come in there, Dr. Susan. You have said, in these few minutes, you've addressed that issue of mental health, and just, you know, that state, it can be unpacked in a very long time. It's a very heavy thing that we need to address. And so many people you speak about, people who, and actually it has been thoughts that have been shared, so many people are dealing, even unknowingly, with childhood trauma, and you've mentioned this. And a big question then, and I don't even know if you can answer it in this platform, that you know how when two people, a couple want to get into marriage, they have to go through counseling. Has there ever been a thought about some sort of parental support? Because what I'm seeing is there are people who might get into parenting, either intentionally or not, but then you have baggage that you don't know about, but then you pass on to your children, which then becomes their baggage and their trauma. Is there a way we can think about instilling some sort of program that then offers little help or awareness to parents even as we get into this, and how to support children, that will be even beyond their own little or big things that they're dealing with? Prof.
Thank you very much, Sharon. A very, very apt question. I'm going to get to answer that shortly. Allow me first to say that part of the reason, which is the question you started, we find ourselves into this, is that there is that wider school out there where children, and as they get into adults, acquire habits, acquire attitudes, and sometimes acquire, particularly here we talk about intolerance. We are generally in a society that for some reason has become fairly intolerant, and children seem to pick up this intolerance, and therefore they don't know how to deal with issues of rejection. Now, coming to your question, at KICD and in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and all the other agencies, we have embarked on an elaborate program of supporting parents. We started from Nairobi. We have called together all the Nairobi parents through the Parents Association. We educate them. We talk to them in all languages. But we have a big plan, if COVID allows, if the COVID ameliorates and allows, of going to what Kenyans call mashinani, to try to reach parents in the counties, in the sub-counties. As we go there, we want to go with handouts in English, in Kiswahili, and we are even getting into a way of doing this in local languages. We are getting into a contract with the community radios, and we are trying to get programs through which we can reach parents. You are in the media, Sharon, and you know that community radios are very popular.
Yes.
Where I come from, we have Ramogi FM, we have Sulu FM, we have all sorts of FMs, and we are getting into arrangements with the community radios so that at a certain time in the day, call it 1 hour, 30 minutes, or in the week, we can be educating these parents. Because you are very right, part of our research reveals that we have, as Dr. Gitau says, we have this set of parents who found themselves into parenting, and sometimes they found themselves into that through avenues that you could call were rather violent. And because of that, sometimes they feel like, okay, do I really have to bother as much? These children will just grow. But with counselors, and this is where all of us on this panel and many others, let us team up, because this is not something we want to do alone as KICD or as Ministry of Education. We will want to team up with all sorts of supporters who are able to discuss with us the content that we have. So George can talk about reading with these parents. Evans can talk about support of the special needs learners. Dr. Gitau, of course, is a veteran, will be very useful. And so this is part of the initiative that we are making so that we support the parents. And and Sharon, allow me to say, you know, when we talk about education or learning, part of what it entails is unlearning.
Very true.
So in the process of our coming up, remember, as children, we were all being inducted into being parents through very different ways.
Yes.
If there's somebody who was considered a very powerful parent in the village, ruled by slapping, you know, if a child coughed or if this fellow coughed, all the children will run away. So this child grows up, and when they become a parent, they think, now, when I cough, either everybody should run to me and tell me, Daddy, what do you want? Or people run away from me. But yeah, so people learn to be parents through different ways. Some of them learn that when the parent is annoyed, they will insult. Some of them learn that when you have a wife, one of the things you must make sure you do is beat them up, or when you are a wife, if your husband misbehaves, you bite him. And this gets its way as people start being adults. So one of the things that we are focusing on now is getting young adults to unlearn some of these habits that they may have acquired, which are not acceptable, and in the process become responsible parents. And closing with what you asked earlier, which is the gist of what we are talking about here, dealing with rejection.
Yes.
I think one of the things that needs to get into our system as a replacement of the previous community arrangement is that we use all sorts of avenues. The church is doing it very well, youth groups, and through that, discussions that can go on. Some schools have formed clubs. Some estates, there's a time when one parent or somebody who's invited volunteers to talk to people about something, age groups. But also, George, this is where you can learn from me, because I have, my firstborn is 28 years old, and I have these serious fellows who are adults, sitting with them constantly and being free enough to talk to them about how they relate with others. And how that is going on. So if you find this young man of 21 suddenly very sad, very quiet, or girl, and maybe they are dealing with a rejection, and you have ignored. So you could come in and tell them, okay, my son, where I come from, they say the son of the young man who is uncle where my wife comes from. Talk to me.
Yeah.
Are you facing some kind of rejection? How are you dealing with it? Take him out and tell him. You remember,
so like
Sharon?
moving
Sharon,
out of the military
yes,
style of parenting.
Sharon, you probably remember the story of Romeo and Juliet, where a cousin took Romeo out and said, Romeo, there are other torches out there that can burn as bright as Juliet. Come and look at them. And that's how he met other people and so on. So I still go back to that old thing. Getting to talk to our children, getting to talk to our nephews, our nieces, and because we are adults, you have seen it all, getting to assist them to deal with the rejection and even to handle acceptance and realize that, look, things happen in life. Sometimes you don't get your way all the time, but you must know how to deal with it. Thank you, Sharon.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And you've really, really handled that issue quite well. And we have just under 10 minutes to finish our discussion, and clearly there's a lot to unpack. There's so much learning we all can do and get tips from each other. So I just want us to go through a round of our final thoughts, and I'll start with Evans, just touching on the subject matter of this conversation, that we are talking about equipping the youth, the adolescent, the young child for the future, for the 21st century world. In a nutshell, under 2 minutes, what would you then say are the key takeaways, are the key points that then we can share with each other, we can share with parents and guardians and the teachers who are following as we aim to do better in this space? Evans.
Evans is not in. I don't see him.
Oh, I think we dropped Evans somewhere along the way. So George, I'll come to you with the final thoughts of just the same, of what are the takeaways? What would you say then we need to do to have that all-rounded young person coming into the 21st century world?
So for me, I go back to the basics, that the basics of parenting have not changed. What has changed is the environment we parent in. And parenting has always been guidance, presence, affection, concern for those who you brought into this world. That has not changed. And parenting is not provision. It's part of parenting, but parenting is not provision alone. And so I go back to, like, for the industry I'm in, which is really I'm like to do a passion industry, because either you fix the child now, or you be dealing with a 35-year-old in your 70s. It's your choice. Either you get the right habits now, get them to do that analytical thinking, get them to pick the ethics, get them to pick a book, read. It will change. There's never been a book you read that has not changed your life. No books, conversations with you, conversations with other elders, and don't just stick. I mean, when you're teen, I know you deal with the teen is locked in the room. Get in there, and if you're lucky enough to have young children, Sharon especially, even when it's hard, dakika tano tu kwa siku, and sure you engage them every day. You will not deal with a difficult teenager. But if you suddenly realize your child is 12 and that's when you start talking to them, you're going to have problems. So I say, for me, the key takeaway, the basics of parenting has not changed. We love our children. They have not changed. What has changed is the environment. Be there, adapt to it. Don't adapt the methodology, but the basics are the same. And of course, for me, I always champion find a way for them, get them to get in the habit of reading. That way they can continue conversations even in your absence. That's
fantastic. Thank you so much, George. Invaluable contribution you've really brought to this conversation. Asante sana. And Doc, as we wind up, final thoughts you want to plant in all of our minds, for the audience, all of us involved, final thoughts as we think about equipping, skilling that young person to go to the world, both hard skills, soft skills, mental health, social skills. What do you break it down to?
Good. I've been good all along now. I was joining you. So, holistic approach to parenting education. Let us all join, the parents, the implementers, the developers of curricula, and even the administration. We are going to be good. One of the things I appreciate, having grown up with very minimal resources, is that the education sector is the most powerful sector in any economy. And this is the only sector that has ready-made arenas, or conference centers in the name of school settings, where we can have effective guidance and counseling happening for children. Capacity building can happen in the same educational centers for teachers, and it can also happen for parents. And if you also want to do something for the community, the school just next door is a very good environment. And for your information, people take the word of the local area chief, sub-chief, and chief very seriously. And so let us make use of these people. Let them be our friends. Right now, I know Professor agrees, and if there are any educationists here, we were able to tell the number of teenage girls because of the local administration. The community leaders are very, very effective. We can also go and capacity build the community leaders with basic counseling skills. Right now, I challenged my university, and I'm very happy with the leadership because they were able to support me. I'll be rolling out a program, a course called Mindful Self-Compassion, where we all agree that sometimes I hurt like another child that is in America, in Asia. So it is common in humanity to suffer. It's common humanity to face some challenges. But can I treat myself with kindness? That no matter what happens around me, I need to be kind to myself. And children are taught from a very tender age. And by the end of the day, can I be compassionate? Whenever we think about compassion, is exactly what Sharon and the team that has put up this webinar together and the panelists are doing. Can I see suffering and do something about that suffering? One day you will see what you thought was so small, an input, bringing out a very huge impact. I know, like for George, when they laughed at you trying to cut newspapers, probably even you stole some people's books. They're thinking you're crazy. Today, somebody is connected. When I was there telling people in the slum, I was telling them, you know what? One day, I'm gonna be a great woman. And they were laughing and saying, you guys, you don't even have a meal in a day. Why are you thinking of greatness? And today, people say, you knew something. So let us work together. And I believe we can do better. Sharon, keep this conversation running.
Fantastic, Doc. We have learned so much from you. Thank you for being part of this conversation. And Prof, you have a very short time, less than a minute, to give us your final thoughts. You've already shared quite a bit. Just wrap it up in a punchy way, what to take away.
Thank you very much, Sharon. All of us who are leaders in various spaces, it is important that, to realize that it is our responsibility to contribute towards empowering our youth for a better world. And one thing that we need to take away is what kind of society do we want to bequeath our youth. If you are able to see the poster behind me, that is a skilled and ethical society. And the best way to get there is to think about values, and values. Keep doing as Susan has said what you are doing. Yes, education is powerful. The media is equally powerful. So how do we summarize this? All of us in the spaces that we hold, values. And that is the main reason that we are reforming the curriculum, so that we produce competent people, but who also uphold high level of values. Thank you, Sharon, for having us.
Thank you very much.
We look forward to another opportunity.
Asante sana. I must thank you all. We lost Evans, but he had already made his contribution. I thank all our audience joining us from the different platforms. And I can't end without saying that, we want to thank our platform, Tuta-Soma, which made this possible. Tuta-Soma is an e-learning platform under the Standard Group that is offering affordable revision material and virtual classes. So also doing its bit, to contribute to the wholesome development of the young people in our country. So thank you all so much, and have a great time. God bless you. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm Sharon Momani. I'll see you again in a different place, different time. Bye.
Bye.